All right. The next major question that, again, all of these questions will be posed by each from our authors to each of these various approaches is the issue of miracles as the credentials of revelation, right? The miracles of the Bible are not incidental, but an integral part to the Christian worldview and to Christian theism. Before the modern era, our authors tell us, the miracles were generally viewed as contributing to the apologetic for Christianity. They were the big deals. Look, Christianity is true. Look at the miracles, right? In modern era, though, the philosophical and scientific objections raised against miracles have led to a reversal of the status of miracles in apologetics. Now, instead of citing the biblical miracles in defense of the Christian faith, our authors tell us that apologists frequently find themselves having to defend the biblical miracles and even the very possibility of miracles. And thus, miracles have seemingly been transformed from an apologetic asset. Look, it's proof we have a miracle to an apologetic liability, right? Sure. And so we want to work our way through this issue of miracles here in this section of the chapter.
Yeah. I mean, you can take the extreme way and become Peter Enns and just talk about, anything that's in the Bible is almost certainly false, except for that which gets you to salvation. But I don't know, why take one over the other. Right. But you also see classical apologists take different parts of the Bible and ascribe them to different forms of writing styles that make it non-historical to get over that. You do have some who, for the sake of, I guess, not arguing for it and it getting in the way, but taking scripture as fully true. And so you have that type of argumentation. And obviously someone like Geisler would vehemently frown against that type of argumentation. But there's a number of them that I've seen who just say, well, arguing that the Bible is 100% real just kind of gets in the way of what I want to do. And so we need to kind of shirk that off a little bit. And so, that can also be as far as miracle goes as well. Just saying, well, let's just kind of talk about the philosophical approach to this and not so much the miracles portion of it. Well, Christian apologists have responded to the modern assault in a variety of ways. The basic strategy taken by classical apologists has threefold. First, they emphasize that miracles are rational concepts in the context of a theistic worldview, right? If God exists, if he is able to speak the word into power, or in the world into power, or from his power, then having him come down and wipe out a city is very much something that is consistent with the world he creates. Or he can send a wind to divide two bodies of, or a single body of water into two bodies of water so people can walk through. There's nothing that makes that concept something that's just incoherent in a theistic worldview. And then second, they give special attention to answering a priori objections to miracles that are based on philosophical or scientific misconceptions. Oh, this thing can't happen because of this. Well, let's take a look at if it's actually impossible for this to happen. And third, they argue that given a theistic worldview, the miracles of the Bible do provide evidential support or confirmation for the Christian faith. Go look at the tomb of David. He is still there, but go look at the tomb of Jesus. He is not there. He is risen. So go. So we might not be able to do that 2,000 years, in the future today. But at the time of writing, it did offer evidential support. And that's just that we still have proofs today that we can go through as well.
Good. Yeah. So let's consider first the matter of the worldview context of miracles. Notice, in an atheistic or naturalistic worldview, miracles are by definition impossible because there's no reality beyond the physical universe to affect the miraculous, right? In other words, if the physical universe is all there is, then there's nothing that can, operate on the physical universe, and therefore miracles are by definition, they don't exist, they're impossible. So the key then to defending belief in miracles, according to classical apologetics, is to defend, as you mentioned, theism, right? If God exists, then of course miracles are possible. So once it's understood that the universe was created by an infinite personal God who is both transcendent, right, above it and beyond it, and immanent, working within it, then the possibility that this God could do miracles is a given, right? So that's kind of the start in terms of a worldview perspective.
Well, then the second aspect of the classical apologetic for miracles is the refutation of a priori objection to belief in miracles based on philosophical or scientific misconceptions. For example, it is often maintained that miracles are scientifically impossible, that they transgress or violate or contradict the laws of nature. Up is down, left is right, triangles are four sides. That would be a miracle.
Yeah.
Well, apologists that counter this. This is based on a misleading analogy between nature's laws and the laws of society. Again, you can make the apple roll off the table, and if you catch it, well, you didn't just violate the principles of gravity. You just entered into the normal outcome of that, and you've caught the apple. It's not a violation of it. You're just assuming like, oh, all things fall to the ground. Well, all things fall to the ground unless of God, right? So that's just what's occurring here in this miracle of me catching an apple, which might be a miracle in and of itself. Right.
And so notice biblical miracles are not anti-natural, but they're supernatural, right? You catch that God supervenes into the situation and catches the apple. They're not caused contrary to nature, but are rather caused by an agent who catches the apple, right? Whose transcendence nature is God. And so the laws of science are descriptive of how nature normally operates. They're not prescriptive of what must always occur, right? The apple doesn't always have to fall to the ground. You can catch it, right? And so, they don't legislate what a God who is transcendent and, above space and time and who instituted those laws in the first place, they don't legislate to that God what that God can or cannot do, right? So they are, they're not prescriptive. They're descriptive. They describe what happens, but they don't describe what must happen, right?
And you see this in science. Light must always travel in a straight line until a large gravitational force bends it. And so then you can bend light. Well, yes, only if this is the case. Well, there's your agent. Your agent enters into the normative process. Yes, if all things being equal, light were to continue, unintruded, then it would continue in a straight line. However, enter in a star, and now you're bending the light around that position. Oh, well, that's just, of course, that's just relativity. That's just science in action. Well, yeah, exactly. That's what the classicalist is saying here as well.
All right, or enter a brick wall, right? It's not going to continue in a straight line.
Right, exactly. Well, classical apologists point out that it would require a metaphysical assumption that the universe is a system closed to any influences apart from the four-dimensional space-time continuum to maintain that the laws of nature could be superseded by a higher principle on certain occasions. The idea of a deterministic or mechanistic universe is not scientific but metaphysical, as is theism. The underlying issue with respect to miracles, then, is whether God exists. If so, miracles are possible.
So notice here when the atheists or the scientists say miracles are impossible because we live in a world that is that's entirely physical. Well, that's a metaphysical claim. That's not a scientific claim, right? And of course, theism is a metaphysical claim. So now we have metaphysical claims, and we've gone outside the bounds of science, right? And so it's not a scientific claim anymore. And so you can't, claim the authority of science when you make that kind of claim. It is a metaphysical or a philosophical claim that's kind of outside the bound of science. And of course, theism is the same kind of claim. So you're looking at worldview issues there with regard to this.
Interesting.
Yeah. So although, thirdly, classical apologists argue that given a theistic worldview, and this is what we were just trying to explain, the biblical miracles provide positive evidence for the truth claims of Christianity. This is because belief in God does not automatically imply an endorsement of any or all moral claims, right? Although the reality of God's existence proves that miracles may occur, it does not prove that they have occurred, right? If it did, our authors tell us, then theists would have to accept all miracle claims to all religions, or at least admit that all of them might be true.
Right. And, that's Rob. And there are some really excellent books out there. I believe Tim McGrew has talked about this and written on this, given lectures on it. So the classicalists have responded in kind to these claims. Well, whether miracles have in fact occurred is a matter of history and must be determined by historical investigation. Classical apologists do not ask that biblical miracle claims be accepted uncritically. They do, however, insist that once the existence of the type of God described in the Bible is conceded, the historical evidence for miracle claims must be taken seriously. They urge that the same canons of historical criticism that are applied to other historical records be applied as well to biblical accounts without prejudicing the case with metaphysical assumptions. Once this is done, classical apologists believe that the biblical miracles will be found to be in a class by themselves and that the evidence for these miracles will be seen as compelling. So again, apply the same standard that we would for the existence of Jesus that we would apply to Caesar.
Or any other historical
records or whatever. Lincoln. If Lincoln actually exists, prove to me that he's here right now. Is he in the room with us? Or looking at what has been written about certain rulers in Rome happening hundreds, almost thousands of years later. Well, do we accept them as being historically realistic? Well, yes. Okay. So why then are we saying, well, people were writing some 20 years after the events. How could they know these things? I mean, there's no way that human memory could exist that long. Well, okay, but then apply it to that. Then do we take out half of the Roman legion of Caesars? Well, no. Okay, so let's be consistent. And therefore, consistency also requires some presuppositions there. But
right. There you go.
We don't have to get into that yet.